Who are they, these single-handed sailors? Men and women who venture alone upon the vast oceans, fearless, stoic, immune to discomfort or doubt, content in the silence of the universe, effortless as the seabirds overhead, and attuned to the songs of whales. Let's find out.
Well, that's a start. Third day out, usual case of no sea legs and nerves. All night long the bilge pump kept going off. There's some kind of a leak under these bouncy conditions, 20 knots and 7 knots through it. It causes the bilge pump to go off every 15 minutes, which is very worrisome. Well, that doesn't look so bad now, does it? We've slowed down some. We're only going 6 knots, and the sea state is much more benign. I don't know what's wrong with me. Stiff and sore after 3 days. I mean, this gets better. This morning, during my routine checks of the steering system, I found this. So that pin has worked out. I'll put some, wow. I'll put some Loctite on that and check all the others too. Time for breakfast. Every sailor gives thanks for this. 12 knots of wind, 6 knots across the bottom. A gentle swell. Self-steering that works. And my first meal in 3 days. So let's talk about sails on a cruising boat. I only have 2 working sails. That's the mainsail and the Genoa jib, which is 120% overlap. Many racing boats have inventories of 20 sails. So why only 2 sails? A single-hander without a crew can't handle his sails as quickly and efficiently as a racing crew or any crew. If something goes wrong at 2 o'clock in the morning, I have to wake up, clip into my safety harness, and the sails can be thundering for minutes. And that thundering, that luffing, is what wears them out. When I reef downwind, I haul the sail down physically against the shrouds, against the mast. I don't always have the sails set exactly right because, after all, one has to sleep. So, 2 sails is it. 2 good, strong sails, and we rely on them up all the time. I do have 1 extra jib, just in case something goes wrong. Let something go wrong? I can't imagine what that would be. Another value of single-handing, you have all 70 gallons of fresh water for yourself, but you still have to do the dishes. rig just as it was getting dark. Good thing I had those 2 tequilas.
Every dog has his day. Yikes. Okay, so the shackle's bent. Fine cuisine. Why, it's de rigueur on a yacht. Instant mashed potatoes. Pièce de résistance. Dinty-Moore. I prefer the cans. This is all my supplier had. The secret to Dinty-Moore is to raise it from its ambient room temperature of about 66 to about 107.5 degrees. They say you've got a lot to learn. Do it. Bon appetit. Why, thank you. What is our course, you say? 240. Just about right. Yes, the indefatigable solo sailor, in his loneliest hour, requires the sympathetic ear of no companion. He finds in himself the greatest collection of human knowledge, with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined alone. For $1 million, what is the dance step that begins grrrr? What is the tango? That is correct. Grrrr, dun, 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 da, dee, da, 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 run, dun, dun, dun. complete this popular expression. There is many a slip between cup and what is saucer. I'm sorry, the correct answer is lip. Yeah, but that's one I never really got. Many a slip between cup and lip. There's a cup and a lip. There's slips. You can make a mistake. The Roman word Felix, which means beloved by the gods, is a good name for what kind of pet? What is a dog? I'm sorry, Felix is a good name for a cat. A good name for a dog is Rex. Isn't that just an opinion? Wow. The unexpected a single-hander greets as a familiar friend. Let his critical self-steering gear fail at midnight in rising seas, he meets such adversity with admirable silence, eschewing the commonplace need to share and explain. So the priorities are, don't get hurt. I'm going to be putting my hands in steering gear which is moving around. Do not get your fingers pinched. Do not, in your haste to solve this problem, be thrown down and break your wrist without the steadying influence of the sails. The boat is pitching around. Maybe I'll heave too. But first, let's take a look at the situation in the light of day. Yeah, so the pin that broke is in the center of the quadrant. Here it is. Boy, look at that. That eye bolt just sheared right off, I guess from the side forces. I know it wasn't loose because I check that each day. I don't have an eye bolt. That's looking mighty attractive, but these are just welds. But this guy, which is one of my fail-safes here in the cockpit, that's mighty strong. Let's see. So we'll have to drill way down in here. I can reach that with the drill, I think. And then can I reach on top to put the nuts on? Well, sort of. I'll take sort of. I got 3 good bolts in, so I think that's very secure. If I just put these blocks back on here, we should be good to go. That is a commercial vessel which naturally chose this time to be 11 miles away with a closest point of approach of just a mile or two. So I just called the captain on the radio and told him I was working on my self-steering gear and was not making any progress through the water. Bear in mind that the CPA is your responsibility. And he said,
Roger that. Click. You know, that might be better than new. Let's clean up this mess and give it a try. I am a bit tired after all that. What we need is something fruity and healthy. I'm going to put the Vim back where the Vimmer used to be. I do think that self-steering quadrant is stronger than it ever was. And we're rolling almost dead downwind now at 6 or 7 knots under partial Genoa alone. Life is good. So, in the movie All Is Lost, which is about a single-handed sailor with some kind of a complicated past, why, when the going gets rough, does Robert Redford shave? I mean, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. He's sinking or something. He's lost hope. All is lost, or some complicated thing like that, and so he shaves. Okay. I wonder what I would do. I think I would probably get a glass of gin. Well, but on personal hygiene front, I don't know, maybe I would take my last pee. At the very least, I think I would go below during the storm when all hope was lost and change my underwear, because my mother always said if Jesus came unexpectedly, you would want to have clean shirts on. She was a deacon in the Presbyterian Church, and I think that was the one important thing. If you're going to be hit by a car, well, they're going to check your underwear in the emergency room, Christian, so be sure you're up to snuff. Because that still doesn't answer the question of why in the movie All Is Lost, Robert Redford shaves. Well, the world is full of mysteries. Well, here goes that. Boy. Just trying to get it set up downwind with the wind vane. Alright. We'll just jibe around and take it off. happened to that whisker pole. Maybe if I review the video, I can figure out how it got out of whack. Busted in half. Carbon fiber is pretty delicate. I'm not sure it's really suitable for a single hander like me. But the good news is that the vane seems to be steering the boat under full mainsail alone, unbalanced as it is at the moment. And we appear to have tropical conditions at last. Here's to this morning, or any morning. It's remarkable to me that the wind vane is able to steer quite a good course dead downwind without the balancing effect of a sail on the other side. That's the purpose of a whisker pole. It holds the foresail out so it can help pull the boat and balance the forces, makes it easier for the self-steering. But I have an idea for that broken whisker pole. We'll see. If I can get this end cap off, this is the same diameter as the main tube, which fractured at the end. And if I were to saw the end off the main tube, I don't see why I couldn't fit this end cap on there, which would make this part of the pole usable. It could attach to its fitting on the mast the way it's supposed to. This end is under compression, and maybe some screws would hold it, but I think that's going to have to wait until this wall passes. How's that for destroying a $2,500 piece of equipment? All right, let's see what we've got. And we can really thank this gentle afternoon. First 15-knot day I think we've had. But if it was a 30-knot day like yesterday, it would have been more difficult to work out the problems. Well, good morning. We're at latitude 25 north and about 146 west, 15 days out of Los Angeles on a beautiful morning. So it's time for a deck check. Make sure that no chafe is building up on us and that some of the problem areas are holding their own. We'll start up here at the bow and the all-important roller furler mechanism. These are not backing out. In the past, I had a mysterious break of this roller furler control line. It broke about here last voyage, and I never could figure out why. It's possible for anchor chain lockers like this one. They're not really watertight. So they rely on a drain in the bow to remove the water that comes in when the bow buries. And it looks like our drain is working. There's no water in the anchor chain pan. That's good. This lift for the bridle for the repaired spinnaker pole is a critical thing to check. It can, especially when you furl the sail at night, it can get tangled up and rolled up into the sail, which really would be a big problem. We're down to my third reef, which seems set correctly. I don't see any overwhelming chafe points. So why did the spinnaker pole break without warning when almost no pressure was applied on it? I have a theory. If this jammed so that it wouldn't go up and the wind lifted the pole, it broke right about here. That's the only explanation I can come up with. There were no other fouls. I can't find anything wrong. We have found things wrong with the Cape Horn inside mechanisms. I think we've got the problem solved, but knowing is better than thinking. Seems like this is my second home. However, this is the replacement pin we put on, which is solid as a rock, I think. And I have Loctite on all these now. I can visually inspect the pins in those shackles, and I don't see any chafe, which is good after 15 days. The dripless shaft seal is not leaking. There's no water or oil in the back of the engine. Let's have a look at the quadrant assembly down there. First of all, the lines are appropriately tight, adjusted here. The pins in the shackles are holding. The quadrant braces are tight. And the vane is functioning as it should. Deck check complete. Well, that worked up a sweat. Wow. I was trying to ignore these 35, 38 knot squalls, but man, and I'll be very irritated as I put down my book to put in that ugly reef while climbing up on the cabin house in the rain. If this goes immediately back to a gentle 20 knots. It really isn't something that you want to do at night alone. Well, you can't sleep, you can't read. I've tried, believe me. You can sort of make coffee if you have great patience with the boiling water on the stove, which can unpredictably hurl itself in some amazing directions. I am used to long periods, ouch, of contemplation on these cruises. Days
which stretch out long and languid, light breezes with the sparkling ocean and the flying fish, so that the imagination runs free. But here the imagination is captured, I tell you, by an incessant, crazy motion that is a result of what the Hawaii Weather Service says is storm trade winds. If we look outside, it's blowing about 35 knots right now, and so that everything on the boat tilts about 40 degrees. This has a few interesting effects, not the least of which is to wake you up if you've dozed off by slamming you against the bulkhead. It's a wonderful life here offshore at midnight, and Hawaii's only about 400 miles away. Good night. Well, I was just about to make more sail, and I think I will wake up a minute because that's a rain squall coming. Heaven can wait. Well, I think we finally hit the sweet spot today for Thelonious 2, which is a 1984 Ericsson 38-footer. And that means lunch. Mamma mia. I thought I would try streaming a warp. It's an old technique for slowing boats down or keeping their sterns to the wind in heavy conditions. 120 feet of line does exert a certain steadying force on the course because it just tugs. It wants to keep things going in a straight line, and that might help the wind vane. It's blowing only 20 now, and we can easily do without it, but I thought it'd be a good test for when it's 30 or 35 tonight. That is the Horizon Enterprise passing us 1.8 miles to port, an 860-foot cargo ship as identified by the AIS system. And she's also bound for Honolulu, and she'll be there tonight. She's going 20 knots. We're going 6 knots. Well, what do you know? We've come to the end of the big chart 530, which is a small-scale chart that shows a huge area from the Aleutian Islands to San Diego. We started here in Los Angeles, and we've made our daily progress across the chart to the Hawaiian Islands here. So current position transferred onto this chart is about here. There's where we were half an hour ago. And our course line goes to Diamond Head. But an interesting thing has occurred. I have heard lots of stories about Kauai Channel, this narrow channel between Molokai and Oahu. And since it's blowing 30 or 35 knots today, I didn't really want to go through there at night. So I tried to slow down. However, I've been unsuccessful in slowing down.
Well, a little change in plans. I have decided I'm not going to make the run for the channel between Molokai and Oahu tonight, because the projection is we would get there at 2 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't see anything anyway. And I'm not sure that once you fetch Diamond Head under these trades, there's going to be much of a lee. Anyway, so one good alternative is to go down the north shore of the island, which we're doing now, to a new waypoint I made on the north end. And that will mean we're dead downwind more or less tonight, and we should fetch that waypoint about dawn. And it'll be morning time, coffee will be bubbling, and I won't have to make so many decisions. That turn and we're at Ko'olina in 2 hours. And we are in the lee. The boat sails straight as an arrow.
Oh my
The
God, I didn't see it.
The captain is always right, and I'm the captain.
And I wore it, but I turned it inside out.
So here is to Hawaii.
Hawaii!
Hawaii!
Her traveling for that year and a half. When she was 18 or 19.
So who are they, folks?
3 girls from San Francisco.
They rode from San Francisco.
They just rode here. So, do I use this to switch the boat, or do I basically not need to do anything now?
Wind from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Sunday. Impacts. Winds this strong as gusts over 50 miles per hour expected.
Boat came through quite well, and here we are on the island of Oahu after a 19-day passage from Marina del Rey. Sure. Let's have 30 knots right here in the harbor. Oahu's a marvelous place, but tomorrow, I think, if the wind gods cooperate, it'll be time to shove off for the mainland. As you know, the trip back to Los Angeles from Hawaii is a bit longer than the trip here because we have to go north to find the eastward flow of wind. So, tomorrow, off we go, 3,000 miles to the east. This is where the Erickson hull form shines. With its overhangs, it doesn't pound. It rides the face of one short wavelength wave up. This is down into the next. Now for some breakfast. Yeah, well, the Billstrump runs continuously. That's not so good. Okay, Oahu, I see you. I see you. Well, I could heave to and crawl up there and splashing up. It must be the whole seating of the hose. Yeah, I think that's what it is. It comes spurting up because of this, where the hose goes through the bow. Okay, I don't think I can fix that out here. It looks like the hose has split from the force of the waves bashing into it. So I think the prudent mariner at this point would just turn around, head back to Oahu. And anyway, this is a bit too much wind to try to go to windward in this boat in anyway. So command decision time, I'm going to return to the slip at Oahu and make a good repair of this. And of course, we don't want to sink. trade winds? Yes. I would like to trade. We're in so much calmer water, so I think it is keeping up. Yes, definitely. It's keeping up and then some. We get behind this point, the water will be flat again. So here we are right back where we started. You don't expect the chain locker to be dry. The idea is the water comes in from spray and drains out that hose. Where does it drain? Well, it drains through a hole in the stem. So I'm using Marine Tex or Marine RX to epoxy close those holes both in the anchor locker and in the stem. And I'll come back in an hour, and when it's set up a little bit, I'll be able to just round it over with my finger. Good. The first thing I did this morning was to go up and open up the anchor locker drain box. So that's good. Quick deck check, the self-steering gear is working fine. We've got a second reef in. And the boat is fairly comfortable. Lovely morning, but an undesirable surprise. When I went just now to trim the Genoa, amazing. The control line has broken again. That's exactly where the control line broke the last voyage on the same day coming home. Chafe, the mortal enemy. On a self-furler, the lead of the line that's spooled up in the drum to its turning point is critical, and this is the turning point. And after it broke last time, I replaced this fitting, and it's possible that this gets turned sideways somehow. So the new line is now rigged and everything seems lined up pretty well. So, where were we? It looks to me like under certain conditions the lead off the drum can rub against this rather sharp top part of the drum, and the constant sawing action, that's pretty sharp right there. Time for a beer. Fixed. And even if it isn't fixed, at least we know what the cause of the breakage was. It's been 4 years of my trying to figure out just how a brand new piece of line could break, and now I see how the chafe point creates itself ever so briefly and then defies identification afterwards. That's a good feeling. I mean, identifying the cause of the chafe, roller furling line. Although this isn't a bad feeling either. Nice to get some water on your face. Automatic shower bath from above. Well, we're about 500 miles north of the Hawaiian Islands now, and noontime's approaching, so it's time for what I call the noon position report, which I send home via satellite for family and friends so they can keep track of the breadcrumb trail of our progress and know that things are okay. So most of my work is done using a PC laptop. A mouse makes things easier. On a tilt like this in a rollicking seaway, it's not so easy to type. A mouse makes it easier. This is jokingly called a hockey puck, a GPS compass, which automatically transmits our position. This is a rented Iridium satellite telephone. There are many other ways to set up satellite communication. I chose this system for a simple reason. In the event of a dire emergency, this satellite phone goes in my go bag, the lifeboat ready, rescue me please bag of necessities. I can call the Coast Guard from a life raft for about a month on this phone, and if you don't have an actual phone, you can't do that. I also take this opportunity to download today's GRIB file. GRIB stands for Gridded Binary File. It's a wind file, quite accurate for about 5 days, to show you the changing direction of the wind and its speed. The result, when everything works, is another entry on the breadcrumb trail showing our progress. Another good thing about single-handing not every crew would enjoy this. Well, I think that we can declare Hurricane Linda not an issue any longer, meaning she's going west toward Hawaii and we're at 30 north. So that's a celebration moment for us, and Spam is the celebrant. I'm the celebrant. Spam is the wedding guest, as it were. Ever have a song stuck in your head that you can't remember? Did you ever get bit by a dead bee? Quite a change, isn't it? From 11 days of bashing to windward in shrouds of spray, holding on every second. North Pacific High. We're almost there. Hi. Please name the satrap of Hellespontine, Phrygia, at the turn of the 3rd century BC. His name is Pharnabasos. A satrap is a provincial governor of Persia, and Phrygia is what he was governor of. And I only know that because, as you well know, I'm reading Xenophon's Hellenica, which takes up after Thucydides, and which has a bunch of good maps in it. And in a week, I will not know who Pharnabazos is, I assure you. So can we not do this? Oh, but you're so good at it. Now, why is the square root of pi an irrational number? The square root of pi is an irrational number because the fraction never completes, it never comes to an end. That makes it an irrational number. And I only know that because I read a book by Bill Bryson a couple of years ago. And in 500 pages of Bill Bryson, I think that's all I can remember. So can we stop? Well, even so, it's extremely impressive. Now, this category is called the punchline of jokes. A motorcycle patrolman pulls over a man driving his car on the highway. He says to the man, "Sir, are you aware that your wife fell out of the car 3 miles ago?" Ah. The man says to the policeman, "Thank goodness, officer. I thought I'd gone deaf." Well, that seems offensive to women, doesn't it? Well, you brought it up. I didn't bring it up. And I know better than to tell a joke like that, which in fact was told to me by a 9-year-old boy, and I advised him, his name is Adrian, do not tell this joke in front of your mother, okay? So, listen, enough is enough. I didn't bring it up, I just asked a question. Well, there's a fine morning breeze. You know, we've been running all week above latitude 38, which is the latitude of San Francisco. And if this breeze holds, then in a few more days, we'll encounter the southerly flow along the coast and be able to head off down toward Los Angeles, which is at latitude 34.
And now a few words, not too many words, I hope, about age, because yes, I'm 78. I'm in my 79th year. And I'm going to tell you something about being 78 that you don't know. I've led a lucky life, helped out by being a 6-foot-tall white man with regular features, of course, but also just lucky enough to be alive this long. I look back on my life and see it in 5-year periods, what the Roman census called lustra. Each lustrum of 5 years seemed to change my circumstance in people and places and attitudes and understanding and belief to get to be 78. And along the way, my concept of age was informed by reality. I seemed to learn things at a slow pace, but could then put them into better effect as time went on. There were many surprises. I had 3 beautiful daughters, but when I had the son who bears my name, I was almost 50 years old, and my great concern was that I would die and leave him without a father. I had a good friend, John, whose father died when he was 16, and it scarred him. It was one of his great regrets. And my greatest fear was that my son wouldn't have a father. Well, my son is 30 years old now. We're both still here. A long life is a stroke of luck, but also a probability now for most of us. And here's the secret. Here's the thing you can't possibly know. That the window of the world through these eyes at 78 is exactly the same world I saw through them at age 17. That's right. Nothing has changed. The sense of consciousness, the sense of oneself, the shortcomings, the fears, the ambitions, the loves, the resentments are unchanged. The consciousness we have is unaltered by time. It's not always a pretty picture. Why, at 78 years old, I am still capable of knocking you down and taking your food for my family if necessary. I am perhaps more sympathetic to the plight of others. I bear my own wounds as well as I can. I look forward to tomorrow as much as I did when I was 17 or 29 or 39 or 40 or 68. More so, perhaps, having survived. That's the secret. Whoever you are now is who you'll be when you're my age. You are yourself. We all are. And the only job we have is to be it. Last night we had a night of sustained 35-knot winds with gusts to 42, I saw at one point, which
caused me at midnight to reduce the jib to a technical term for which is a scrap of jib. And the only damage was that weather cloth got blown out by a wave, which is what's supposed to happen. It breaks away. 40 knots is gale force winds, but I prefer to consider this just a disagreement between wind gradients here. The only problem is that this slows our speed down a good deal. I can make at most 5 knots under these conditions. Otherwise, we start leaping off the waves. The difference between this and a real gale is the sea state. A real gale is characterized by much larger seas. Yep. That ain't good. Broke right off. I just examined all this last night. Oh well. All this stainless breaking on me. The shackle will not, the pin won't fit through the hole. So I've got a big machine screw that will fit through the hole, and theoretically that will work for a while, but it's worth a try. All right, let's see if that works. All right, back on course again, I think. Yeah, this is not what you'd call comfortable. The wave train is parallel to us, and we're going 7 knots, and it periodically just throws us on our side. Well, there's a change in the weather from a 35 and 40 knot gale yesterday to this 25 knots from behind with nice 8 and 10 foot seas pushing us to our destination. It's about 400 miles ahead. I don't think there's any place I'd rather be than right here this minute. This is the small-scale chart on which I plot our progress every day. Here's the route out to Oahu, and the route back is shaped differently. And here's one way to look at it. This is about a 150-mile day. This is about a 60-mile day with tacking. And our destination is here. And at noon today we were here, day 23. Well, there's another way to look at this chart. Which is if, ugh. Maybe we'll get there, maybe. Why not? Most people do. No reason why we shouldn't. Say, we're getting close enough to get there in a few days. The psychology of it is up to you, but believe me, there are days when you really wonder whether this is ever going to end or not. You again? You know, we're 300 miles from land. You really need a place to stay, I guess. Well, all right. I'll give you a ride. We'll hope for the best for our guest. Oh, come on. What are you doing? You can't. You're going to ride in the cabin with me all the way back? That's not a window. That's a fixed port. It doesn't open. And if you go outside, you're not going to be any better off than you are here. All right, have it your way. Dinner's about 6 after I trim the mane. Well, the bird didn't stay for dinner. You know, when Noah's bird arrived, he had in his beak, what, a sprig of laurel or something. This bird arrived, he had in his beak a bill from the Department of Water and Power. It said, "This is to inform you that you have used 3 times as much bird as other boats of comparable size." Kind of a gray morning, but that's all right. That is American Freedom, destination Portland, Oregon, at a distance of 0.69 nautical miles. I just wish I could get that tune out of my head, or into my head. And something about easy breezy. Dun 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 dun. No, that's Jiminy Cricket. Hi. We have to talk. What historical figure was present at the eruption of Vesuvius, and also, impossibly, nearly 70 years later? You're wearing Hawaiian beads? I'm terribly sorry. We can't accept that. You have to go now. What? Land is approaching, and it's a bit embarrassing, frankly. But why would you be embarrassed? You may not be embarrassed. Well, then what's all that about being alone together? You know, that whole TED talk you give to everybody? I mean, is that what that means? That it's just you, it's not us? No, that's not what alone together means. Alone together doesn't mean talking to yourself. Alone together means in solitude you have a connection to the whole universe of all of us who ever lived, everybody you know, everybody you remember, all your friends and enemies, everybody you've read about, everybody who ever lived is with you. We're not alone, we're part of the whole. Oh, I don't agree. And I should like now for you to just go away so that I can go back to land and not have people think that I talk to myself out here all the time. I don't accept that. Don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed it. We've whiled away the hours together, but now, please. That's land, all right. San Miguel Island, the Channel Islands. We're about 10 miles away at a very pretty dawn. About 90 miles now to home. Somebody's got to clean all this up. What a mess. I don't even want to look under the... Yeah. I think. Jiminy Cricket. Everything's bright and breezy.
Everything free and easy.
Do as you darn well pleasey.
Do as you darn well pleasey.
That's not Jiminy Cricket.
Don't you make your way there, go there, stay there.
Anytime you're Lambeth way, any evening, any day, you'll find us all doing the Lambeth walk. Every little Lambeth gal with her little Lambeth pal, you'll find them all doing the Lambeth walk.
Un petit coup de manivelle et j'entends des ritournelles, des airs qui chantent, les folles âmes étranges.
Once you get down Lambeth way, every evening, every day, you will find yourself doing the Lambeth walk.
Anytime you're Lambeth way, any evening, any day, you'll find us all doing the Lambeth walk. Oi! Every little Lambeth gal with a little Lambeth pal, you'll find them all doing the Lambeth walk.
And so every single-hander returns to land, as he knew, most of the time anyway, that he must. Already memory begins its revision, cold headwinds yielding to glorious wing and wing down tropical seas. Memory is what we are, and we are what we choose to remember.
Also have paddleboard over
I'm still
here.
not entirely sure what the difference is, except it seems like it's a shorter
We never
course.
used the paddleboard.
Yeah, it's like
I know.
it's like a wiffle ball.
Do you want to? But Kev's in a tournament today. Oh, what time? And he's 1 o'clock.
1 to 3.
I'll
and
talk
then
for you. So you got a carbo loading.
5.
You got to do some carbo loading here.
Yes, yeah.
Find yourself doing the Lambeth walk.
Say, thanks for coming along.
Doing the Lambeth walk. Every little Lambeth gal with a little Lambeth pal, you'll find 'em all.